All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Lindsay Dragon, even though it may say Kristen Hoffman on the screen. I'm from the Autism Center at Misericordia University, and today we have Detective Chaz Ballo from the Luzerne County District Attorney's Office. So we're going to give everybody a moment or two to sign in for our internet cell phone safety webinar. Okay. So we're very excited to get some great information tonight, and it will be conversational. So definitely get your questions ready, and we're going to be utilizing the chat box for any of those questions, and we'll work off of each other that way. Okay?
Sounds great.
Perfect. Okay. Hope everybody's enjoying the mild October we're experiencing right now.
It is very nice.
Yeah. I usually have a PowerPoint with our events coming up to play during this time. However, November is looking pretty slow at the moment. We have a couple of things lined up, but nothing too set up yet. So. All right, we'll just give it one more minute and then we will begin.
Why are you smiling?
My sister-in-law is on this as well. So hi, Laura. And she sent me a text. She's out by Pittsburgh. So
nice.
The great thing about this topic is that it's not localized to our area, and a lot of the topics that we cover aren't. You can honestly, this can benefit anybody from anywhere. So,
right.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, Detective, if you would just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, that'd be great.
Sure. My name is Detective Chaz Ballo. I currently work for the Luzerne County District Attorney's Office. I'm currently assigned to our Special Victims Unit. I'm also assigned to our Computer Crime Unit. And I'm also a member of the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force. I'm a member of the Pennsylvania State Police Northeast Computer Crime Task Force. So it's very busy. I'm also a K9 handler. I have a K9. His name is Spike, and he finds electronic storage devices that helps us catch bad people who are sexually and physically molesting children when we're using their digital devices. So there's only about 60 in the country right now. So very fortunate to have him as a partner.
Wow, nice.
I've been doing this job a long time. The last 15 or 16 years, I've been assigned to this current unit I'm in. I've been a police officer in law enforcement for over 30 years.
Okay. This is initially, set out to the autism population as, I work at the Autism Center here at Misericordia, but internet and cell phone safety is for absolutely everyone, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this presentation is for every parent, every kid. Unfortunately, because of our current situation with COVID, we're seeing rampant numbers with more sexually explicit and sexual exploitation of our children because of the high usage by the entire population, whether it's kids and adults.
Scary, scary stuff. How difficult is it for you to work with a family whose children are either victims or the actual perpetrators in these situations, and they are just not tech savvy at all, the parents themselves?
Well, I think that's the first thing that you always want to talk about with families is certainly how parents need to be involved with their kids' devices, whether it's a cell phone or whatever it is. I mean, we need to know what our kids are doing. I think I always think of electronic storage device. I'm talking about our cell phones, an iPad, a tablet, a laptop computer, a desktop computer. I'm always thinking to myself when I talk to parents and do presentations, and I ask them, can you get in your son or daughter's cell phone or their tablet? And they tell me no, I get upset because you need to get in there to know what they're doing. So
Right.
that's the first thing is like knowing what our kids are doing. You have to have access to that device. And some parents will respond to me and say, I feel like I'm invading their privacy. And there's really no such thing as invading your child's privacy, especially in today's world. There's no such thing as being overprotective in
Right.
today's world. So the first thing I tell parents is they need to learn the technology that they're placing in their son or daughter's hands, and or guardians or grandparents, whatever it is. They need to know how that works, what capabilities it have. It's no different than when we give our kids a key to a car. We're not just giving a key to a car and say, hey, go find out for yourself and let us know how you make out. It doesn't work that way. And our phones and our digital technology can reach much further than any place our kids could even get in a car. So it really is important for parents to learn that technology and what their kids are doing. And I always start off with, what kind of apps are our kids using? I think that's important. You need to ask your son or daughter, hey, what applications are you using? And again, we're talking about applications which can be downloaded from their Play Store or whatever device, whether it's an Apple or is it going to be an Android device. So, but we need to know what devices or what apps they're using. So I think that's important. If parents don't go through there, they have no idea what their kids are using. So I think using, what applications our students are using, our kids are using is very imperative to know exactly what they're doing. And once we learn that, then learn the capabilities. So,
Right.
I don't want to jump all over the place. I'm just thinking of things that always stand out to me when I'm doing my presentations, because I usually will say to parents, hey, how many of your kids have Snapchat? And a lot of parents will put their hands up. And I'm like, oh, that's great, right? And then I'll say, well, do you know anything about it? Can you tell me how it works? Do you know where to go? And there's many parents who don't. And
Right.
one thing that always seems to bother me the most, that bothers me, is within Snapchat, there's a hidden folder, a secret folder that you could have, and it's labeled My Eyes Only. And I'm aware of that. And that's where our kids will chat with people and send and receive videos and or pictures and store them without the parents ever even knowing that they're on that device.
Right.
So that just gives you an example when we talk about applications. Knowing what they're doing is very imperative.
Yeah, and I have a 6-year-old who is on his tablet quite a bit, and sometimes he's watching YouTube videos of somebody else playing games, which I'll never understand. But those individuals are talking, and sometimes they're having a conversation with somebody else, and my child is talking back, and then I'm like, wait a second, who is here in this house with So it's startling to know that even just going into what you would think, oh, he's just watching somebody else play a game, and it can bring out all sorts of other things.
And that's a very good point. And when I first started off my presentation, I always want to make sure that we express that internet safety, and it goes with same thing with applications. It all rolls in. Lindsay, if I were to walk up to you on the street and start talking to you, we never met before, and even if we're adults, you might find it very strange. I start telling you all about my life and everything about me. You might think I'm a little off and say, I don't know, this guy's a little bit weird, or you may not take it, but for sure, you're going to be taken back.
Yeah.
And I start showing pictures of myself, and I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm telling you everything about myself. I would think that most people would be like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But here's the problem with technology. Kids are doing exactly that. They're giving out to the world information about themselves, which can easily lead some of our predators, the people that I arrest on a daily basis, to them. But they don't think that because they're in a room like this, the door shut, and they feel safe because that door's locked. And unfortunately, that's where the parents got to come in. That's where our
Right.
parents say, hey, I got my kid. I know where he is. He's either on his computer or he's on his phone or he's on an iPad. I don't need to worry about him. He's okay.
Mhm.
That's not the case at all. So those parents that are listening, they're the ones that really need to take that initiative to know exactly what their kids are doing and where they're going for that reason. Because we all grew up as a little bit older than maybe some of the other people, but our parents also never talked to strangers. We heard that all growing up, right?
Right.
You hardly ever hear that said anymore.
You're right.
And I don't understand why, but it still stays true, even if we're on the internet. Our kids are talking to strangers, exactly what you said. My son playing games, he's going on YouTube. Well, I have issues with YouTube myself with young people because I've had as young as 6-year-olds who were talking to people, and that person talked child into doing inappropriate things on the camera and posting it out on on YouTube for the whole world to see. So, and we're talking about sexual exploitation, and
Right.
kids aren't thinking they're being told what to do, and they're doing it. So when parents think, oh, I have a 6-year-old, I don't have to worry about that for a couple of years. No, I used to say that when I first started this job 15 years ago doing computer crimes. I would never go to an elementary school. You know, today I started elementary schools because they're my biggest concern.
Why do you think parents kind of choose to stick their head in the sand and not take it seriously? Because I have to admit I'm one of them. I pride myself on being active and, you know, seeing all that he's on, but sometimes I have to do a meeting and I'm like, okay, here's your tablet, you know. So, you know, it just seems like it's unrealistic from a parent's perspective to be on them all the time. But I feel like I have just, you know, not taken it seriously myself even.
Well, I think that's because I go back to my theory where you're in your castle, you have your door shut, and you know where your kids are.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents get that security just knowing that, but that's not the case anymore. When we were kids, that was the case because that was always the case. Our parents knew we were safe. We didn't have devices, and you and I both know, like, we didn't have like cool things like this. We didn't have these cool laptops. We didn't have the internet. I mean,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
So parents, you know, they learn to like come to adjust a little bit with technology. But again, just because your kids are in your house and the doors are locked, your kids are still in jeopardy and they're still in danger because they're providing personal information about themselves that's easily going to allow someone to find them. And that's the last thing we need in today's society because unfortunately for us, very rarely do we have abductions that are happening just with a random person driving down our street and grabbing a kid. Today's world, they know where the kid lives, they know what they do, they know what activities, they know what parks there are. So they're now specifically targeting our children and much more sophisticated criminals. And so we gotta step up our game and make sure our kid is not going to be a victim. So I think that's the biggest reason why I think parents believe their kids are safe because that door's shut and they're in the house.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense when you put it that way. And it really is, it's frightening. And to know that you work in Luzerne County, where, you know, a lot of the individuals who are going to be, you know, taking note of this video, you know, so it's here, it's everywhere because it is a worldwide, you know, availability there.
Yes, and again, we go back to because of this whole situation we're in with our country right now with this COVID, more and more people are using technology, and unfortunately, they're using it for the wrong reason. And they're going to lure our children into, you know, some of these applications or whether it's YouTube. And when I say YouTube, I mean it's any application our kids could use. Almost every application allows our children to communicate and talk with people. So
Right.
if we don't know who they're talking to, well, that's a problem. That's a problem because we all grew up that we don't talk to a stranger, but yet
Right.
our kids are doing it and we don't know who they are. And here's the better part. Parents who allow kids to have social media accounts, and some of these kids have 1,000 friends, 1,000. How is it a 13-year-old or 12-year-old or whatever age it is, 1,000 friends?
Right.
1,000. About that. So I always, as my daughter was growing up, unfortunately, I was really hard on her. I would go through her friends list, say, who is this person? How do you know that person? You know, if parents ask that question and the kids and their son or daughter says, hey, wait a minute, that's one of my friends. Well, you got to take it a step further. Where did you become friends? Because if you don't do that, unfortunately, on the internet and they think they're friends.
Right.
You got to further that investigation on your own as a parent, guardian, and say, how do you know that person? Because a lot of parents will say, oh, it's a friend. They just assume from school, but we need to ask that question. So as this technology grows, our parent awareness needs to grow with it and adapt to it so that we protect our children even more than we already do, if that makes sense.
It does. How do you feel about the video games? I know that a lot of people like play video games and they're chatting across the world. And same thing with like something similar to like a fantasy football league. That might be a random draw on like Yahoo or something, but you're still interacting with people who you've never met, never will meet.
Well, and you get into that kind of stuff, and as a child, I think it's a problem because you're opening yourself up because you believe that you can trust this person, but you really can't because you really don't even know who that person is.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. We always heard that you could be anyone on the internet right now. If you and I we weren't on video camera and we were just chatting via messaging, I could be anyone I wanted to be, right? I could tell you I'm a guy, I could tell you I'm a girl, I could tell you I'm a 12-year-old. Matter of fact, I do go online and tell people I'm a 12-year-old boy or I'm a 12-year-old girl because people will believe that. And, you can't believe that just because you're talking to that person and you've been talking to them for a couple of weeks. Most of my predators, they do what's called a grooming process, and whether it's in a video game, because it'll start off in a video game, and you're right with this new Xbox and PlayStation 4, they're wearing their headphones and they're communicating. The guys on that other end, they really don't care about that game. They got a notepad and they're writing information. They'll say, "Oh, by the way, where do you live? Where are you from? What area?" So the kids don't think anything of it. They start giving out information.
Right.
Who knows when that game may be over, that person may have enough information to actually locate our kid. So again, I don't like it. And I understand it's the way of the world. And a lot of parents say, oh, that's just ridiculous. He's just playing a game. Well, if you ever listen to kids in a game, I think you might just change your tune because sometimes they are being asked personal information.
Right.
And ask personal information. I'll take it a step further as ethically. There's a lot of bad words being used when kids are gaming. And if we have our minor children on there, they're learning things that they might have heard here or there, but it's a pretty constant thing when kids are gaming in today's world. The foul language and inappropriate for some of these kids that are playing.
Well, not to mention it's also just completely unrealistic. Was it last year that the teenager or young man lost the Call of Duty national thing and he just killed the winner?
Yes.
But he just didn't have a sense of reality because he basically thought,
That is correct. That is just something that's going to keep going on. And, the other things I think that we, need to address with parents and our students is that, it's easy to get scammed when you're on the internet. And when we talk about
easy.
that, adults get scammed on, let alone our kids. Our kids get convinced that they can be blackmailed because they did they shouldn't have done, and now this person will keep coming back to them. And I give you examples where we had individuals that are predators that are literally getting a child to do something they shouldn't do. For instance, we had a case where we had a young female lift up her shirt, and she's a very young person because the person told her why they were chatting. And then, of course, that person is recording everything and now tells this girl, well, if you don't do this, this, and this, I'm going to send that to your parents. You're going to get in all kinds of trouble. And, you know, it just opens up this big can of worms, and our kids don't know how to deal with this. So they're really being extorted. And, we use the word scam, but they're being extorted. And it is happening. This is real world. I mean, this is kind of stuff that is taking place on the internet, and it's happening more frequently than a lot of people want to actually admit to.
Well, it's happening, and it's happened to me in this last 2 weeks. There's a trunk or treat at the arena for Autism Awareness and EPA, and some people have gone online and said, oh, I'm selling my tickets. Well, I was the event organizer, so I, went in and I was like, hey, how many tickets do you have? And I just started this whole dialogue just to see how far this person would go. And for a free event for families, they were going to charge me $20 a ticket. And so I quickly looked at their Facebook profile, because it was all via Facebook. And it was very blurry photos, not a lot of information. And so, of course, towards the end, I have to eventually, out myself as, you should be ashamed of yourself. And then this guy says back to me literally, sorry, dear, I'm just trying to put food on my table. I'm a male. Interested? ? It was like, what is going on? But he wasn't the only one. There were 2 other people who tried to scam that free event. They never had tickets. They were just going to take the money from a family who has special needs. And then those people were going to show up and not be allowed entry after they paid $100 for tickets. It was ridiculous.
Right. And that kind of stuff is constantly going on, constantly. And again, that's just another way of, that people are getting scammed.
And I asked, I said, how am I supposed to get you this money? And they sent me their Cash App or Venmo account, whatever. They sent me the information. They're like, oh, just send it right over on your apps.
Yeah, they'll tell you to use a green pack. And anytime someone's mentioning that kind of stuff, you have to realize that something's not right.
Right.
I always
And
tell
real
people,
quick, I just want to tell the participants that are on here that if you would like to ask a question, just go ahead and type it in. This is being recorded, so anything that you ask, just know that it may, keep some of your personal information, to yourself. We can always get in touch with Detective Ballo after this as well, if anybody has any direct questions. But this is just insane. Do you have any statistics that you are, readily available to share with us on, any of the ages or anything like that?
Lindsay, I gotta be honest with you. Most of these people that are targeting our kids, they'll go after any age. And again, I previously stated that it used to always be, we used to always look at like 12 to like 16 was a heavy targeted area. Now we're going from 5 to 15, 16 years old that are being specifically targeted. And of course, as they get older, they're looking for bigger things. We get into, human sex trafficking stuff. There's a lot of stuff like this happening just because of the internet. So,
right.
Usually when our younger kids, if we look at 5 to 12-year-old, usually that's a sexual exploitation thing that's being done by our predators. They're convincing our children to send them inappropriate pictures or videos. And if our children aren't aware or capable of doing it, these predators, of course, will help them.
Right.
And of course, and help them and guide them. And as parents, again, we think our kids are in a room where they're safe. And here, this guy, this predator is telling them to do inappropriate things, and they're doing it, and they are doing it. So I tell you, right now, the youngest person I ever had was 6-year-olds. I had a few 6-year-olds who were chatting with people and sharing, like uploading videos and be able to share inappropriate videos with these people that they don't even know.
That's just it's so unreal.
Unfortunately, the bad part about this is once that gets out, we can never promise a victim that we're going to be able to get all those pictures or all those videos back out of the hands of these kind of people. So to me, that's why it's so important for our parents to realize that, because our children's video and or pictures could be out there for the rest of their natural life.
And they make Hallmark or Lifetime movies about these things, and so with all these apps, it's not advertised like it would be in the past, where you'd have the commercials leading up to it. But they're all on demand, and they still are out there, and it's really hard to deny it once you see the damage it can do from just a friend being jealous and sharing something that she shouldn't share. Or that was the theme of the last one that I watched.
Okay.
But the other side of that is when your child happens to be the predator. How have you talked to the parents when their child is the one doing either the cyberbullying or doing inappropriate things, maybe at school through the school computers? I've seen that with students in the past, with or without autism. I mean, this is just a universal topic, but one thing with autism is that some of those social cues you don't really understand, and they may not realize what they're doing. But in a lot of instances, they understand what they're doing 100%. And how would you talk to the parents about, what their child is doing?
Well, that's a good question. I think we'd have, it's always a case by case basis, of course. But, in situations where we have, let's say someone with autism, I find that most of those individuals who are, as you say, like our perpetrators, they're usually told what to do, and and that person that's telling them that is always usually an adult, and that's where as much as I want to say that child is our perpetrator, really they're our victim, because they're doing what they're being told to do, and that happens more often than not in cases that I have personally investigated. Very rarely do I have someone who's just doing stuff on their own. They're able to do it, whether it's via a chat or an application or even by video of some sort, a video chat. They're being told what to do. And but as far as that goes, if that were the case, if they are the perpetrator, I think again we go back to our parents and our guardians taking that initial role. If we're going to give our son or daughter these devices, then we need to know what they're doing with them. And I truly believe that we could stop a lot of our sexual exploitation of children by parents parenting more strictly when it comes to electronic devices.
Yeah. Are there any applications that parents can use that would help them, search the history, or is there there should be like a parenting thing that, to help figure out what your kids have been doing? I don't know what it would be called because I'm not that techy yet, but is there something you recommend to do other than just asking them what it is?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, as far as if I want to make sure I got your question. Let's talk about monitoring software. Is that what you were? Okay, so if we're going to talk about monitoring software, no, it's okay. It's okay. I just want to make sure I understand so we get out. We want to get out. I think monitoring software, there's numerous applications for parents to download on their son or daughter's devices that can restrict what their kids are doing, where they're going, apps they download. You can do that just even through your electronic service provider, whether it's Verizon Wireless or AT&T Mobility, whoever your electronic service provider is. You can do a lot of that by having password protected. So if your kid wants to download an app, they would need you to approve it, and then you go in and log in your password and allow it.
Right.
So on the flip side of that, I have seen where parents give the kids the password, and now the child has the password. Now they can download any app they want.
Right.
So for those parents listening and watching, they should not give our child the passcode if we want to restrict them from what they're doing. And sometimes it happens where the mom or dad's busy and they're like, oh, I'll just give you the password. You go down, download the app. Once you do that, you're giving them the keys to the car again, and they're off, and we don't know where they're going. So don't do that. You know, tell your child, hey, listen, come back when I'm not busy. I promise we'll download that app and we'll get it on there for you.
Yeah.
That gives a parent an opportunity to actually learn about that app, maybe read about it, whether you Google it, however you want to learn. As an investigator, there's so many apps out there that I have to know that I can't keep up with the apps that our children are using. But believe it or not, I'm a 52-year-old guy that has like almost every app you can think of on my undercover phone because I need to understand it as well. So if you call me or a parent calls me, I have more knowledge than the parent. So it's almost impossible for me to keep up with it. So I know it's very difficult for parents. I get that, but it is critical that we know every application. And I know that we talk about applications, and I say that. I look at parents because when you look at your son or daughter's phone, you'll see applications. That's all those little things that are on the phone. So call. And I for those that aren't tech savvy, so we do know, but that gives you an opportunity to learn. See, there, I love it. See, you know the application you have on that phone, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's important. That's important because if you don't, then bad things could happen, right? So, getting back to the monitoring software, I don't specifically recommend one over another, but if you go out there. There are numerous, and when I tell you numerous, there's numerous programs and software that you can download on your kid's device, and you can literally monitor everything they're doing, whether it's text messages, phone calls, and here's I have to give a disclaimer here that if you're going to put a software of this type on your son or daughter's application, you have to understand the phone has to be owned by you, and to your son or daughters. And I say that because there's applications, if I were to install on a paramour or my girlfriend's or my daughter's without their knowledge, and I say my daughter is now an adult, that could be a problem because there's laws that prohibit me.
Right.
That's illegal wiretapping. Right. So you got to be careful. So what I'm saying is this is not something that you put on a significant other's device. This is something that you're really putting on your child's to protect them. So you know what they're doing.
Right.
You know, their whereabouts and everything you want to know is on that software. So you can see everything they're doing. Like it's almost like having a video camera looking over their shoulder. And even though you're not there, you can always go back and check it and see it. So they're the kind of softwares that I recommend. And again, I don't push one product or another. I stay away from naming software, but you could easily go out there and on Google and look for monitoring software for your son or daughter's phone, and you will find many good applications that you could download. Now, there is a price usually with those.
Yeah.
Some's a one-time fee. Sometimes maybe there's a yearly fee.
Mm-hmm.
I look at parents and say, if it's $40 a year, whatever the cost is, it's well worth it because now at least you have a peace of mind of what your kids are doing. And there are times when parents have that kind of software on their kid's phone, which I think is really important for parents watching and or listening, is that there have been times where parents had this kind of software on their son or daughter's phone, where their child did meet with someone that they weren't aware of, that they were able to go on and see at least who the person was talking to, and that allowed us to go after a specific offender in a case where we were able to identify that person because the parents had all the text messages and everything that we needed, and we were able to know where their daughter was, and it's just a great feeling because now instead of us and you panicking, oh my God, where's my son or daughter? They could be in there depending on what time they left if we don't know. But if you have these kind of softwares on your applications on that device, it gives you a little reinsurance and better security.
Yeah.
I want to point out that just putting it on your son or daughter's device doesn't necessarily mean you're safe. You need to check and make sure they're doing the right things, of course.
Right.
So again, that's another disclaimer. So there's a
We
lot
like
of
a
things.
disclaimer.
Yes. Well, I have to do that.
I know.
And you touched on something that I want to go back to when we talked about cyberbullying.
Yes.
That is becoming more prevalent over the last 10 years, more so than I've ever seen it. And when you're asking about statistics, believe it or not, females are more likely to be cyberbullies.
I believe that.
Well, because women are very good with their words. And you don't have to be a woman, just a gender female, whether you're 10 or you're 30 or 40, whatever, women know verbal judo, as I refer to it. And number two, women communicate much better than males. So with that, that's why a lot of times our perpetrators in cyberbullying is females. There's a presentation called Mean Girls Online because most of our cyberbullying victims are females, and we do have some males that are victims from females because they can be really vicious, and words do hurt. And I always emphasize to our students, and I know parents know this because we're adults. We know words hurt. So when someone says something bad to us, we all can remember a time in our life, if not multiple times, that someone said something that was mean and hurtful and hurt our feelings. And I always tell people it always hurts you in two places. One being your heart, and the other one's always in your memory, in your mind, because you don't forget it. So it stays there forever. You break someone's heart. I always show the slide that, a saying where, although a tongue doesn't have any bones, it can break every bone in someone's body because words do hurt, right? So to me, when we talk about cyberbullying, it really is a true problem within our society, and it's overlooked because some people just think it's nonsense and kids need to be kids and they need to grow up. Well, unfortunately, that is not happening. Our kids are being cyberbullied using their devices that they love so much. We have children hurting themselves because they don't know which avenue to take. So when we talk about cyberbullying, and it's, again, people who say it's a no-nonsense thing, they're ridiculous because we have more children hurting themselves because of cyberbullying, and it's growing again. Why? Because everyone's on these devices right now because of this epidemic that we're currently in. So we need, again, and things that we need to look at as parents when we talk about our son or daughter being a victim of cyberbullying. So I want to talk about the victim first. Let's talk about how if our son or daughter doesn't want to hold their phone up anymore and they're not using their phone or they're not using their tablet, they're not using their laptop, you have to understand something's way wrong, because when that happens, that means bad things are happening. That means that your child is seeing something on there that they don't want to see, and it's hurting them. Because what kid's not walking around with this in their hands everywhere? This is like their lifeline. If we take it off, they think they can't function. There's kids, I don't even know if I can take 2 steps forward if I don't have my phone in my hand, right? So that's a clear sign. When parents call me, ask me that question, that's the first thing I always tell them, that if your son or daughter is not touching that device, something is way wrong.
Right.
Excuse me.
And it gives you a lot to think about as a parent.
Well, it is a lot. I mean, and again, it goes back to the responsibility of a parent giving their kid a device. This all comes with everything that we've been talking about for the last 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that's not even talked about with parents, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So if our children are the perpetrators of cyberbullying, oftentimes we will find that your son or daughter is going to have an app that is specifically used, unfortunately, to actually make fun of people. And they'll have pictures of their friends, and they'll make memes out of them and make fun of the victims of cyberbullying. And that's how we catch our children being the perpetrators of cyberbullying. Another way is when the kids are like looking at their phone and they're laughing all the time, and something's not right. That you constantly see that. That's a good indication maybe they're doing something where they could be saying and being hurtful to someone electronically.
Right.
There's many ways of reaching out to victims of cyberbullying. Every kid is using that device. So, when we were growing up, as the parents that are watching this, we didn't have devices, right? So we didn't have to worry. Bullying, really, we never had cyberbullying. We never had that problem. Unfortunately, in today's society, we do have that. But when you and I were growing up, the bullying really happened was at school. But most of it happened at school. And, the clear indications of a victim of bullying is, I don't want to go to school anymore. And sometimes they don't want to be a tattletale and tell on the kids, because they know that mom and dad's going to go in there and say, little Johnny or little Susie's making fun of my kid. And now the principal's going to bring that kid in. Now that kid's going to be even worse on kids. And that's how kids think. But unfortunately, it needs to be reported. I'm going to tell you something. Unfortunately, cyberbullying and bullying go so unreported that it's scary.
Yeah.
It really is a problem. If parents were to actually spend time and do a little digging on, cyberbullying and our children hurting themselves, they would be interested in making sure their kid's not a person involved in it or being a victim of it.
Yeah.
Because it really changes our kids' behavior. Our kids don't want to eat. They become upset. They don't want to leave the house. So they're indications that something's wrong. And parents know their kids. I mean, we know if they're up to something, because we just know it. And we call it parent intuition, whatever you want to call it. Everyone. You don't need to be a detective to know someone's up to something. As a parent, you know what's going on more so than me. When you see, your kid's doing something, and you know that they're trying to hide something from you. You walk by their device and they cover it up, or they're hiding, or they hurry up and close it.
Mm-hmm.
You want to immediately go over and grab that device. Oh, by the way, what were you just looking at? Let me just see that, right? So, again, it's just a big problem. It really is with cyberbullying and bullying.
There is a new show or something on Netflix, and I haven't watched it yet, but it's called The Social Dilemma or something. Where did you get a chance to see that yet?
I did.
Crazy.
I did watch it. Yes, I did watch it.
I haven't seen it. Does that factor into everything you're saying? It's just gotten so out of hand?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just, and unfortunately, people in society actually like jumping on board and making fun of people too. So the sad part is you get this cyberbully or this bully, and really people who are bullies or cyberbullies, all they are is cowards. Let's be honest. I mean, they're cowards, especially a cyberbully, because they're behind a keyboard, whether it's their computer, their phone, whatever. They don't have enough trust to come to you and approach you and say those things to your face because they're afraid to. And they're so, it's easy for our kids to go behind a screen and type mean and hurtful things and hurt people's feelings. And again, you never know how far you're going to be able to push someone before they actually explode, right? I mean, we all have our pressure points or boiling points, I should say, that you never know when we're going to blow. And that's when bad happens. Either that victim becomes a perpetrator and goes and hurts people or hurts students. You don't know. So that's always another concern for law enforcement because sometimes our suspects or perpetrators are actually victims when we actually get done with our investigations. Sometimes that does happen, and that's sad. So it is something that is taking place, and again, I really think it's unreported, and I don't think a lot of people in society realize how bad it is.
Yeah.
There's many great stories of cyberbullying taking place and people doing the right thing, stepping up. So when people ask me what can you do, well, make a change, put a stop, report it. The only way it's going to stop if it gets reported. It has to be reported, whether it's to if it's happening at school or if it's not happening at school. Report it to a counselor, to a school resource officer, a teacher, and if the child's home, to their parents, to someone they trust, whether it's a big brother, a big sister, or a little sister, depending on who they trust. But tell someone because it needs to stop because we know that you're being hurt, and it's not in your best interest for your own health to keep having that happen. So we need to stop it one way or another. So I try to tell kids, if we can get people to stand up to this, people will stand up with you and say, you know what, you're right. That's not right. They shouldn't be doing that. Instead of jumping on the bandwagon and just saying, let's have fun and make fun of little Joey or little Susie, and because that's easy. But those people are just as guilty, right? I mean, even though they said the hurtful and meaningful things said to that person, but they're almost accomplices because they pass it on or they'll add their own comments in. I always say there's a great song out there and it's called "Don't Laugh at Me," and it's a beautiful song. And I play that song when I do my presentations, and I tell you it's a beautiful song, and I mean that. And
I'll put the link in with the video for that song too.
I absolutely love it, and in the lyrics it says, don't take pleasure from my pain, and when we hear those words are so true. Yeah, different than you, and you're different than me, but there's no reason for me to make fun of you because you're different than me, and vice versa. And what do I mean by that? We have kids that are being picked on maybe because they don't have the best clothes. They have, whatever kind of clothes. Short, or someone's tall, or someone's heavy, someone's wearing glasses, whatever it may be. And sometimes it's because of their race or whatever it is. It's not right. We're all different, but at the end of the day, we're all the same. I mean, we're all beautiful in our own way, right? I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
I was a victim of bullying because I grew up in housing projects, and so I know what it's like to be a victim of bullying. And I can tell you, it's not fun. It's not fun. And earlier I told you how it stays in two places, and I can tell you to this day, I can tell you every hurtful and mean thing that was ever said to me as if it was said to me.
I can't too.
Right. So when I'm doing my presentations, I ask kids that and even parents. And we all know that. And we all can remember those moments. And they're not good moments. And parents, as adults, we have a tough time when someone says something hurtful or mean.
Yes, we do.
Right. Could you imagine being a kid? You're trying to look for your independence. You want to have friends, but yet now you're being bullied. And that seems to be the only way you're being accepted. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for our children.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my rant on all that.
No, rants are good because you get that passion behind everything that you're saying, and it just proves how meaningful it is, not only to you, but in everything that you see. So one thing that I would never want to be is a doctor, an EMT, or any kind of a police officer, because I don't want to see the things in life that make my, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to know some of those horrible things that they just seem so unbelievable. But something so, I mean, innocent as a 6-year-old child going on YouTube to watch a show. Now, I taught in a school for a very small amount of time as an assistant in a graphic design class, and they were looking up the crayon colors. Well, he typed in crayons, and you know how they all have their name on them that describe the color?
Yes.
Well, I don't know how it came up, but they were all named something horrible, but they were indeed crayons. So that's the thing. Something so simple can be turned into something so disgusting so quickly.
Well, back in the day when, the internet really became popular and, it really hit like, started hitting big in 1994, but
Mhm.
you would go to whitehouse.com and you would come up to very inappropriate things. And who would ever think? I mean, kids are searching for this kind of stuff. They might be doing
Right.
some history project. They want to learn a little bit about our government. So, you have to be careful. And again, if we have filters on there, that may stop our children from seeing those things too. So
Mhm.
we go back to, maybe just monitoring a little bit better or putting some kind of software to restrict our kids from maybe going to that inappropriate website before they go there. So, and when we talk about YouTube, I just want parents to realize YouTube is a great thing, but I can tell you it's also a very bad thing because it's used in very criminal ways.
Nefarious ways.
Yeah, it could be very bad. It really could be bad. So
Yeah.
there's always good and bad in everything, and
Mhm.
just let your kid go on there and not knowing what they're going on. You need to have kind of restrictions. Now they have YouTube for kids. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And
Yeah.
and supposedly that's filtered, but I question that sometimes myself because I could go on there and say I'm an 8-year-old kid, and I'm just and I'm going to talk to another 8-year-old kid, and
Yeah. How do you know?
I learned of a website today after we conducted an investigation, and it's called kidschat.net, and Kids Chat is for kids, but yet our pedophiles and our predators are using it, and I noticed that they are using it to talk to our kids, and parents just think that they're going to be talking to kids their age. You can never assume that anymore.
Yeah.
Again, we're not face to face. You and I really wouldn't know what each other looks like. I wouldn't know how old you are. I wouldn't know anything other than because normally we'd be just chatting via behind our keyboard,
Right.
and and again, a lot of our individuals that I arrest are in fact doing just that. They'll hide behind the keyboard. Of course, they can't come on screen with our kids because or they block their camera and they tell you, oh, there's something wrong with my camera, whatever it might be, and they still convince our kids to do inappropriate things. And meanwhile, they're recording this. So again, it really takes parents involved to make sure that their kids are going to be safe. None of us as parents, none of us want or intend harm to any of our kids ever. And I say this, we protect our kids at all costs. Well, I believe that to be true, but I think because of society and the way our world is moving, as parents, we're constantly going, and we don't set aside some time to look at this stuff and keep up with our kids. And we just take it for advantage that we think our kids are going to do the right thing. And I'm here to say it's not a bad philosophy, but you got to make sure they are doing it. You need to go in there and check no matter what their device they're using. Please make sure they're going to be safe. make sure they're not giving out personal information that's going to allow someone to easily find them.
We do have a question that just came in, and it's how do you find on YouTube that your child may be chatting with someone, and is there a way to search their history?
Yes, that's a great question. So when you go on YouTube, you could go into you go into your kid's account and see if there's any kind of chat messages between your child and someone else. Now, again, if they are talking to one of the guys that I would deal with or individuals, a lot of times they'll make sure that they teach them how to delete that. So what you can do when you open up your internet browser, you can literally hit Control H and you can see the history of where your kid has been. And at least that'll give you the hyperlink of where they've been. And what's nice about that, a lot of our children, I'm talking our younger children, don't know how to clear their internet history yet. So that makes it really easy for, as a parent, to go on there and check what their kids are doing and checking their browser. So it really is a simple.
And something else you can do is if that history is cleared, you can ask them why they were clearing the history.
Oh, well, absolutely. And furthermore, you can lock that down if you wanted to. You know, I always make sure my daughter was growing up, so I would lock it down, or I would have it set up that it's not ever deleting itself unless I go and delete it. So that way, if she does do that, I would be aware of it, or I'd be alerted to it. So, and again, that goes back to having that software or application on your son or daughter's device to keep an eye on them. And listen, again, you're not invading their privacy. You are being a parent who's concerned and don't want nothing bad to happen to them. And I can tell you, my daughter, when I started the computer crime unit, I think my daughter was about 8 years old, and I could tell you, she went through, even though Dad had everything locked down. I watched everything she did all the way up until she was 18. It sounds crazy, and some people say I'm crazy. I can tell you something. I can assure you one thing. I know my daughter never met someone she wasn't intending to meet. I know that she never said anything inappropriate because I monitor everything. So I made it easy for her. If someone asks for something like that, she says, just so you know, my dad's going to see what you just asked me. And my dad sees everything I do. I gave my daughter a way out. I should all the other parents do the same, right? It makes it easy on our kids. It really makes it easy. I mean, and again, if someone wants to say I'm overprotective, well, guess what? I'm okay with it because I see the bad in the internet and I see the bad in what comes out of not checking what our kids are doing online or with their devices. So it's because of that I am the way I am. So
I'm thankful that you're here and able to tell us these things because it's, I learned a lot tonight that I thought I already knew, but it was, definitely a lot of new information and gave me some, things to, plan for my week off, which is coming up soon, not too far away, but to definitely change the way that we interact with his tablets and everything.
Well, and I'm just part of one, probably, a great team of people that are really concerned, and our job is to, protect our kids and go out and do what's right. So, we try to do that every day, and I'm just proud to be part of that team because our team is devoted and dedicated to, making sure our kids are going to be safe, getting predators offline, and to stop sexual exploitation of our children. So it's truly an honor to be a part of that team.
Yeah, well, it's an honor to have you, speak with us tonight. I just have two quick things, and then I think we'll be all finished for the evening. I do think that a lot of parents are trying too hard to be their child's friend, and then they don't make that separation between having to lay down, something that is a parental, thing that you should be doing because they're trying to be their friends. And I see that so often.
Well, and that's a great point. And, you can't do that in our society with these devices.
Yeah.
You know, to have your son or daughter's device in their own hands, and then as a parent not to know how to get in that device if they have it password protected is insane. That means something's wrong. Okay, I don't. Why won't you let me go into your phone? If I'm a parent and my child had a passcode that I wasn't aware of, I always assigned my daughter her passcode. If I went to her phone, I grabbed her phone any day of the week, any time of the day. If I went to put the password and it didn't work, that's it. The phone's mine until you want to give it to me. And I am going to definitely search this more thoroughly than I probably would have any other time.
Right.
Because that's alarming to me.
Yeah.
That's alarming. And by the way, real quick, before we forget, there are applications that our kids could download that hide things from their parents, like hidden secret apps. So if you have an Android device, there's folders that are called secret folders, hidden folders. So for mom and dad to understand that. Again, you need to know everything on that device. So you got to know what every device is. What every application is.
Yeah, and the easiest way for me to understand that part was from the kids movie, the Emoji Movie. It tells you what a skin is, and it's an app that they're not supposed to have, but then they put like the weather, app over it, and they call it a skin in the movie. But it's like he's the guy in the animation movie says it's to hide things you don't want your parents to see.
Correct.
And that's in a kids movie.
Well, and that's what bothers me. That's what's bothering with our society. They're already planning that in our kids' head that they should have a secret hidden now.
Right.
Which is just crazy. Right? So it just makes it harder for us as parents. I know, I get it. Believe.
All right, last question. What are the top 3 apps you think parents should not allow their kids to have on their devices?
Well, I got to be honest. I'm not a fan of Snapchat because
I gathered that
parents believe that or our kids believe that when they take a picture, that it goes away in just a couple seconds because that disappears, and it doesn't. There was another app that was out that was being frequently used. It was called Kik, K-I-K, and another application that I don't care for. And there really a third one. There's so many different ones that I would say are bad, but I'm not a fan of Facebook if a kid's under the age of 13, because that's actually the age that they're allowed to be on Facebook.
Right.
A lot of parents their kids' account when they're 8 years old, and again, that kid's becoming friends with people they don't know. So I have issues with that if you're talking about younger children. So I because that allows anyone to send messages to our children and try to communicate with them through Facebook Messenger. So, I think they're probably my top 3.
Yeah. Well, that gives us a lot of food for thought as parents, and then also as, just any professional that's out there and sees the kids doing that, can then even hopefully, let the parent know, like, look, this is a little out of hand. I think you should take a look, maybe, anything.
Right.
Because this is just insane.
And if we look at our kids' screen time on their devices, I think parents would be amazed at how much time is spent on their son or daughter's application. When I do my presentation, I always ask that question: how many of you are on your devices for 5 hours a day or 10 hours? You'd be amazed. Our kids really, even as young as 6, can get part-time jobs with how many hours they're spending on their devices. Or if they're that young, they could be doing chores around the house and spend time on that device, because at least doing chores, we know they're safe.
All right. Well, and last question is, who do parents contact if they feel like there's something going on?
Well, I would recommend that they contact their local police department, and immediately, And if it's nothing, then it's nothing. But don't call because you think it's nothing. I always say it's better to be safe than sorry, and we always
Right.
hear that expression. And with digital technology, I would urge parents to be safe than sorry. Make the report. If nothing comes of it, nothing comes of it. But if something comes of it, then you're going to save your son or daughter. So report it to the police. And when if the police think that they need assistance, they're going to reach out to our computer crime unit, the district attorney's office, the state police. Our unit is there to assist them in any way we can. So I urge parents to contact their local police if they think something's wrong. If they see their son or daughter talking with someone that they feel that person's asking inappropriate questions, don't waste time. Don't delete the messages either. Save them, because our goal, we want to look at them. We want to identify that person. And the only way we're going to be able to do it is by seeing the application and that person's unique user or screen name. That's really critical for us to further our investigation.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. And if anybody has any questions that they would like, for me to pass on, you can always email them to us at autism@misericordia.edu, and I can pass them on to Detective Ballo if he's okay with that. And for the most part, it just gives us all a lot to think about. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, and thank you on behalf of our district attorney, Stephanie Salavantis. We want to thank you for having us to be part of such a great thing, and we're always here to help.
Well, thank you again. If we were not in COVID, I would shake your hand and say, have a wonderful night. But now we're in Zoom land. So have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much. All righty. I'm going to stop recording now.
Hey, by the way, I didn't tell you, my daughter is a graduate of Misericordia.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very
That's
nice.
That's where since the school. She loves it there.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. There we go.